Hello Driving Intelligence community. I wanted to do a quick video on the rear window replacement of a 10th generation F150. At some point, I think everybody, unless you store your vehicle inside constantly like I do with my 10th generation Harley Davidson F150, you're going to have a leak. I came home from a business trip at the airport. My truck was parked outside, opened up the door, and the rear seat was a puddle of water. So it was obvious that it was the rear window. I decided to pull the rear window, and to make sure that I didn't have additional leak from the trim, which also has holes around the perimeter, I took the trim off, but the trim cracked and broke. So I looked online. I figured, what am I talking about? $100, $150, almost $600 for one of those trim. If you can find one that's in decent shape at the junkyard, good luck. You still have to pull it off. So I decided to fix mine, so that's part of what I did here. So this video is going to take you through a bunch of snapshots. Sorry, no active video of the actual replacement, but some snapshots of what I had to do to fix this window and a few tips to make sure that it doesn't leak again. One thing I'll point out right now, after fixing the trim, I painted it. I used a Duplicolor series of products. I used a primer, after an adhesion promoter, a gloss clear, and then I use clear coat to protect it from the sun. It's hard to see how good this looks in the video, but it looks fantastic. I also got a nice center light. The other center light was disintegrating as I took it apart, so I found on Amazon a center light, which is LED, and the color actually matches the trim, so I thought that this looked fantastic. Actually, I wish I could do this to my Harley Davidson F150, but I'm not taking it apart to paint. In order to get the window out, which has a series of screws that penetrate from the window into the cab and are held in place by nuts, you're going to have to remove the back seat. You'll have to remove the side trim after you remove the seat belt, and you'll also have to take those two push pins out for the headliner and those hangers on each side. Once you take all that out, then you have access to get to all the screws and nuts that surround us, and you'll be also be able to take the trim out. In this photo, I'm pretty far along, removing the side trim panels, seat belts, the headliner, and the back seat. So in this photo, you'll see that I have removed the window and the trim. If you look closely in this photo, you'll see the little holes where the studs from the trim and from the window penetrate into the cab, and nuts are used to secure it in place. In this photo, I haven't yet removed the trim, but you can see the trim in place with the third brake light still in place, but the window has been removed. Here you see the window removed with the studs showing, and there's some butyl tape, the sealing medium, that is still on the sealing surfaces. In order to get this window out, I had to use a spatula or something that's thin and wide to break the butyl seal and push the window out. You're going to need somebody on the outside to keep the window from falling as you push it from inside the cab. At this point, I've removed the trim in the same manner. It's not held in with seals like the window is. But now you see the mess you've got to deal with. This is all got to be cleaned off before you put the window trim and the window back in place. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I was unlucky enough to have the trim break, and where the arrow is pointing is where I had the breakage. But I used some metal that I formed, and I also filled that area up with two-part epoxy, and it made a very strong connection. So I was able to fix it instead of spending $600 on a new one. After repairing the trim, I cleaned it thoroughly and sanded it in preparation for paint. So I used adhesion promoter, I used a primer, a base coat of gloss black, and then I used a top coat of clear to make sure it's protected from the sun. So my sealing surface is perfectly clean now. I used some solvents to get that butyl off, which was a little difficult, but it finally came off. You want to make sure that this is completely clean to have a good seal. Here you can see the before and after photos. What I also did is I taped everything off, and there was some minor rust. I wanted to get rid of all rust, so I sanded it down, and then I put some Rust-Oleum gloss white paint on there in those areas where it wouldn't be seen because it was covered by the trim, but just an extra layer of protection. Then I installed the trim. You're going to need the butyl tape in this phase also, because the holes for the trim, where the studs from the trim penetrate into the cab, are going to need to be sealed with that butyl. So I rolled it into a small string, and then I wrapped it around a stud from the trim before I push it in place and put the nuts on. That will squish that butyl into the hole to make sure that there is no leaking around that trim. And this is a key point. This is one reason why I removed the trim, because I wasn't sure if the leak from the rain was coming in my cab from the window or from the trim. Here you can see a before and after shot of the trim before being removed and painted and after. Moving on to the third brake light. As I mentioned, I bought an LED third brake light from Amazon. It's a beautiful piece and it works perfectly. It comes with a pigtail that you'll push through the hole, the electrical hole, after you disconnect the original pigtail. And it connects with no splicing into the existing electrical connector. Here you see the third brake light in position with the LEDs on. Now on to installation of the window. Here you'll see the butyl rope or strings that I was talking about, where you pull a piece of the butyl off, you use your fingers to make a little rope, probably about an inch long, and then you wrap it around the studs. That'll make sure that those sealing holes are sealed. Then you'll run your butyl along the sealing surface around the perimeter of the window, and it's ready for installation. At this point, when you're installing the window, you want to practice great caution. You want to push the window in place, have a friend hold it in place while you put the nuts on those studs, and you're going to slowly tighten each of those nuts as you go around the window, similar to what you're doing with a head torquing procedure or an intake manifold torquing procedure. You want to tighten them a little bit at a time until the window is completely seated against the sealing surface. If you tighten them up one at a time completely, you're going to probably break the window, break the seal, break the stud. Now that you've got it in place, you can put all your trim back in place, your seat belt, and you've got a sealed window. This will last you another 10, 20 years, maybe more. Another good shot of the finished product. I think it looks fantastic, especially with that gloss black trim and that LED light at the top. I wish I could do this to my Harley-Davidson F150. I think it looks so good that it would be a fantastic enhancement to that vehicle, but I'm not taking the window out to get to that trim. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was instructional for you. If you've got a problem with your window, I think this should help you out. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up, and I'd appreciate it if you subscribe. Again, those are the best ways to support my channel. Thanks for watching.